Right, South Africa, it's time for another of our COVID Chronicles essay, because I think right now, if anything, we are in that phase of seeking to overcome. But I can assure you that our guest today, anything that you could be facing right now, you've not had to overcome what this young man has had to overcome. Solo, good morning and welcome to COVID Chronicles essay. How are you doing, Squire?
Good morning, Edo. Thank you for having me on, first of all. This morning I'm doing pretty good, although it's a bit chilly outside.
Meet 26-year-old cricketer Nicholas Nqweni. In 2012, this dapper young man was representing us, South Africa. He was mixing it up with the likes of these guys as part of the 2012 Under-19 Boys World Cup side, who made it to the semi-finals but lost to Australia. His first-class debut came immediately after that tournament, and Solo, as he became known, has been building his first-class career ever since. Last year marked his first stint abroad with Scottish side Aberdeenshire. A stint that remains punctuated by what happened on July 14, 2019, the day his life changed forever. Coincidentally, also the day of the men's 50-over Cricket World Cup final.
I'm at home watching the game, and around lunchtime I want to get up and make myself something to eat. However, as I get up, I notice that there's like a buckle in my knees and in my legs.
It's funny how matches can turn on one moment. It's even more remarkable how those moments can have massive knock-on consequences.
This has got to go all the way to the boundary off the bat. Can you believe this? It has. I do not believe what I've just seen.
Luckily, New Zealand lost, because how this all pans out is that my housemate probably would have gone out to celebrate that evening if New Zealand won, right?
Yeah.
2 to win. Guttull's going to push for 2. They've got to go. Throw's got to go to the keeper's end. He's got it. England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins. By the barest of all margins. Absolute ecstasy for England. Agony for New Zealand.
So England wins. He's obviously distraught. He comes back with his girlfriend complaining about the match. Time to go to bed comes. So obviously I want to get off the couch to go to my room. But as I'm trying to get off the couch, I realize I'm really weak, and I'm struggling to lift my body. So I call Callum and I say, Callum, can you please help me get off the couch? And he's like, Solo, stop playing games, bro. It's not the day. Laughing, like, just get up. And I'm like, no, seriously, I can't. So I fall asleep on the couch, and around 2 a.m. I need to go to the bathroom. But now I'm even weaker than I was before, and I'm like, well, I can't call Callum to take me to the bathroom, so I need to try and muster up some kind of strength to get off this couch. So I'm fighting, literally using maximum effort to try and get up. And I end up falling on the floor, off the couch. So now I'm laying on the floor and I realize, okay, I'm in a bit of a pickle now. So I start screaming and I'm like, Callum, help. And luckily his girlfriend was from Aberdeen, Scotland. She knew which numbers to call. We called the ambulance. They were there within 30 minutes. And they put me in a stretcher, took me to hospital.
There's a moment in all of this where you're on the ground or on the floor and nothing else in your body works except your eyes. In that moment, what is that emotion? Is it fear? Is it trying to work out what's going on here? What went through your mind in that very moment?
Honestly speaking, even when I was on the floor, I realized that there's something wrong, but I wasn't like panicking, because I think my breathing was like fine, and sort of the vital stuff was, they were fine. So I wasn't panicking at that stage. I started panicking and had a breakdown at the hospital. Wow. So what actually happened was the doctor. So I still needed to pee. Right? So I told him at the hospital, like, I still need to go to the bathroom. That's the reason why I woke up. And they gave me a bottle to pee into. And I'm pushing my hardest trying to pee, and nothing is happening. I'm literally using maximum effort and nothing is happening. And then the doctor's like, okay, it looks like we need a catheter. And I don't know if you know what a catheter is, but it's extremely painful. And that's when I I literally burst into tears in front of my housemate, just burst into tears and realized that actually there's something wrong. And I didn't know what it was at all. I didn't know what it was. And I think more than anything, I was anxious about having perhaps like something in my brain going wrong, something like very extreme. You know, I kind of went from 0 to 100 because there was no middle ground of stress.
How long after this trauma, and that's what it is, it's physical, it's emotional trauma, but how long after this trauma are you then diagnosed with Guillaine Barre? And I'm sure it must have been an education for you in terms of what this thing is.
Yes, facts. So my doctor, when we were having the back and forth with respect to him asking me questions, he mentioned to me that I suspect it is Guillaine Barre Syndrome. And fortunately, he suspected right, because he was like, you know what, we're not sure, but we're going to treat it as Guillaine Barre Syndrome. And I remember waking up in ICU and only my eyes moved, literally only my eyes moved. The first week I was in and out of an induced coma because I was in so much pain, nerve pain, because my nerve, or what Guillaine Barre Syndrome does is it basically causes your immune system to begin to attack your nervous system. So my nerves were literally being burnt inside my body to the point where I had no nerves except the ones sort of in my head and face. So I was very lucky that the doctor suspected right, and as a result got me the correct treatment from the word go.
That 4 and a bit weeks that you were in that medically induced coma while the doctors were trying to fix you, as it were. Do you have any recollection of that?
I remember having a bunch of weird dreams, you know, and I remember like once I was able to communicate sort of months after, asking the doctor, why when you're in an induced coma, you always hear stories of people having these certain kind of dreams, and I feel like I also had that kind of experience. And it's almost like you're in a parallel sort of world, and you know, when you're waking up and going back and waking, you lose track of what's real. It was even harder for me in the fact that even when I would wake up, let's say for the effect of the morphine or whatever was wearing off, I could only move my eyes. So I could not communicate with anyone how I was feeling, any pain. You know, I couldn't talk, I couldn't drink, I couldn't eat. There was a tube that went through my nose to my stomach. That's how I got my medication and my feed. I had the ventilator tube initially in my mouth, which was helping me breathe and keeping me alive. So it was hard because you feel trapped.
You've spoken about being a young man who lives in faith. That other world that you're talking about, that in-between world that you were kind of traversing. Now that you've had plenty of time to think about it, how do you make sense of where that is, what that is, and what you're going through in that time?
I definitely feel that God played a major factor in me surviving this. I had some quite deep and personal spiritual visions while I was in that state. I'll share one with you, and this is when I knew that there's a real living God. So in one of my visions, I actually saw Nqweni, right, in one of my visions.
Yeah.
Randomly. I think because we both have lost our fathers at a relatively young age. And months later, 6, 7, 8 months later, all of a sudden, without me and him communicating, Nqweni donates his match fees to my rehab and my therapy.
Yeah.
We didn't even speak at all. Next game, he wins the game for South Africa against England. No one even, he didn't go public with this. It was just between me and him conversation. And I was like, wow. Like, I actually had a vision of him when I was in that induced coma. And now look what God is doing months later.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that God played a big factor. And I think, you know, initially I did ask, why me, God? You know, what have I done to deserve this? But I think what gave me peace of mind was when I got to that stage where I was like, you know what? Essentially, I'm just a human being, you know? Why not me? Why must this happen to you, Udo, instead of happening to me, Solomzi? You know, like, why must someone else suffer this pain that I'm going through? So once I got to that stage of acceptance and a lot of the visions that I saw, you know, I was more at peace with what I was facing, really. And you know, that's what, like I say, I know there's a living God.
Brother man, look over your left shoulder. There's a vision right behind you in the window. Just say hi before we continue. Listen, let's get back to the conversation, because it took you months to get to a point where, along with your family and your doctors, the desire is to get back home to South Africa.
Yes.
But now financially, bro, to be able to get onto that flight to get you back home, that in itself took a bit of a miracle as well.
Big time. So essentially what happened was, if I give you a bit of a timeline, I was in the ICU, critical care, for 3 months. And in there, yes, I got the GBS, and basically there's 2 treatments for the GBS. The first is like something called IVIG, where they basically put a line in your neck to your heart, and they basically inject you with other people's cells to try and go and fight off those cells that were damaging your nerves.
Yeah.
And then the second form is plasma exchange, where they sort of take out your blood cells, put it in like a washing machine, and then put it back into your body, and you have like fresh cells. But as I was getting this treatment, and because my body was so low and my immune system was so weak, I developed TB. So I had the TB gene lying dormant in my body, and as a result, it spread. So I got tuberculosis and lost a lot of weight. I was weighing 85 kilograms, went down to 59, and that's when we needed to put the tracheostomy in, because they needed to pump the blood out of my lungs. My lungs were bleeding. In doing that, my liver and my kidney failed, so I also had to go on dialysis. So it was just a bunch of complications on complications. I mean, my heart rate was 150 beats per minute when laying in the bed, like motionless. You know, that's like being at the gym working out. So my heart was working overtime to help me survive and fight off everything that it was dealing with. But once I was stabilized vitally, they moved me to the neurological ward at ARI, Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. And that's when I began to start focusing on physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and sort of getting me prepared to be able to go home. So what happened was, so that's another 3 months in neurological ward. And now December, January comes, and we're sort of planning for me to go home once the tracheostomy comes out, because then it's safe for me to travel. I was so unlucky. So my travel insurance expired 3 days before I got sick. So if I got sick 3 days earlier, my medical insurance would have covered my repatriation back to South Africa. And at that stage, I was in a bad condition where I needed my own air ambulance with like a full medical staff to transfer me back home, because I was still struggling with the paralysis. I was still a quadriplegic at that stage. So obviously now we realize that it's going to be a mountain to climb, you know. So the first offer we get from one of the repatriation companies is £240,000. The second one was £180,000, and then the third one was £85,000. Yeah. So obviously we were like, okay, well, we can. That's the only one that we can realistically even look at. So my agent started a GoFundMe fundraiser, and you know, fortunately, so many people poured out their love and their pockets, you know, to help me be able to go home. So as this fundraiser is going for like a week, you know, the people from this company come to assess me to see what I really need and how I am. So the owner of the company and a doctor comes. They assess me, and then the guy's like, hey, actually, you're not as bad as what your medical report says, so we can perhaps look at a different option, which is flying you on a first-class flight, because I needed to lay down. I couldn't be seated for more than 2 hours, otherwise I was in excruciating pain. And that ended up being £20,000, which is still a lot of money. So we took the money that we raised from the fundraiser, and then we completed the balance. The rest of my family, literally everyone just scraped and dug in, and we got the R500,000 to bring me home. And you know, thankfully I came home before coronavirus was sort of what it is now, borders closing, because then I wouldn't have been able to be here, see family, or do anything. So, you know, fortunately, you know, so many people supported. My family came through for me in a way that I could not have imagined, and I'm just thankful that, you know, everything worked out the way it did, and I traveled back with a doctor and a nurse first class. Not the way I thought I'd fly first class one day. I'll take it.
Was that your first class flight,
Yes,
by the way?
Yes.
Now you in SA, you recuperating, you getting all sorts of therapy to make a full recovery.
Yes.
And then boom, COVID-19, bruh.
What else? What else? Seriously.
How did you find out? What prompted the test, by the way?
So when I came back, I was in Santon Mediclinic for 2 weeks in ICU, just so they could sort of run their own tests, stabilize me, match reports, etc., etc. After that 2 weeks, I moved to a rehab facility for 8 weeks, where there's still doctors and nurses and stuff, but it's trying to integrate you to prepare to go home. And then, yeah, finally I got the opportunity and I was well enough and I came back home, even though I still have a 24-hour care worker who needs to help me with my washing, eating, cleaning, whatever. Basically, because my hands are still, you know, getting to the point where I can hold and write and, you know, so I still have a long way to go. But we have a mini hospital set up here at home. But now I've become an outpatient at the therapy. So the only two locations I go is therapy and pharmacy and then home. Now every time I get to therapy, they give you sanitizer, they take your temperature, you fill out a questionnaire, etc. And every time I had gone to therapy, there was no issues with the thermometer. I would always get in, have no issues. But for some reason, weirdly, this 1 week, the thermometer was saying that my temperatures are high over the required limit, right? So every time they'd have to like bring me cold water, make me wait outside until my temperature drops and then I can go in. So I think in the back of my mind, I noticed that my temperatures are getting a bit higher. Something's different, but I wasn't feeling sick at all at that stage. So that was like sort of the first week. Then the second week hits and I am absolutely, I have a super flu. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
My eyes are sore, my head hurts, I have bad headaches, and I'm not a person that generally gets headaches. I'm coughing, I'm sweating when I'm warm, when I'm cold. It's just, I'm literally bedridden. That whole week, I can't even muster up enough strength to get out of bed. So I go to my doctor, I explained to him all the symptoms I had been feeling. That third week, it even got to a point where when I was blowing my nose, there was blood coming out.
Boy.
And I had this really bad rash, like head to toe rash. I'll send you a photo of it. It looks, I've never had measles or chicken pox, but like it's literally all over my body, head to toe. And remember, with the GBS, I have limited movement, so there's itchy spots that I can't reach. So it's really, it's killing me. My doctor's like, well, there's only one way we're going to find out, is if you do the test. But yeah, so I did the test, and unfortunately, I came back as positive. And you know, I feel like that affected me mentally more than anything else, because I was anxious about going back, you know, to hospital. I was anxious about being back on a ventilator, because even though a ventilator is there to keep you alive, it feels, it's the weirdest and toughest feeling to feel like when you want to breathe, the machine's maybe breathing at a different rate than you're breathing, and it's like you're trying to sync your breathing with the machine. So I was like thinking, I don't want to go back to this life. And my doctor said, listen, for the next 2 weeks, you literally need to quarantine from everyone. So there's 7 people in the house. I'm the only person that tested positive for COVID. Yeah. Even my care worker who's with me 24/7, who's being brave, you know, she didn't even test positive. So I was like, literally, what is this?
You mentioned something interesting as well about COVID and its impact. And that you noticed how, over the short term, it began to change your personality. What did you mean by that?
Because of the anxiety, you know, like I mentioned that I've been in hospital for 8 months, 9 months already. You know, I've had enough. I've literally had enough. And now I've contracted COVID, and I was like in that what else can happen stage and frame. And now I must be isolated from everyone. You know, literally for 2 weeks, people would just sort of wave at me from a distance in my room. No one would come in, and it affected my personality in that I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wasn't responding to messages. I was very negative. I was down. You could even go as far as saying maybe I was a bit depressed about it, because I was feeling really sick, not feeling good. And on top of that, now I have to think about the fact that my doctor said if you feel like your breathing has changed or you find difficulty in breathing, you need to get you to ICU immediately. You know, and I have a friend who works in the medical profession, and they said to me, listen, you don't even want it to get to that point, because like 10% of people who go on ventilators actually survive. So all of these things are going on in my mind during this period where I'm boosting my immune system like nobody's business, 3 times a day, feeling tired, drowsy, not wanting to talk. You know, it was difficult. You know, it was difficult. But you know, after that 2-week period, I did start feeling like myself again. You know, I did start feeling better. I had that impetus to get out of bed, to go to therapy. You know, that excitement for the day. And that's when I went for the second test. Unfortunately, I tested negative.
Negative, yeah.
So it was like a 4-week period where I was just going through a lot of things at once, mentally and physically, with the illness.
Day to day must be a hell of an expensive, guy. Having somebody there 24/7. I want to know, is the GoFundMe account still set up? People who are watching this inspired to assist, can they?
Yes, so the GoFundMe account is still set up. Literally, if I'm honest with you, it's costing me about 40K a month to be able to go to rehab, to have my care worker, and to get my medication. So it's tough. It's taxing on myself. It's taxing on my family. And you know, there's no way around it, because I need it. It's not even an option. You know, otherwise your body sort of permanently stays in the state that you are currently in. I mean, that the one positive thing about GBS is that you do continually get better versus different autoimmune diseases where you continually deteriorate, and I'm fortunate and I'm glad about that. But there's still a lot that goes into me being able to get back on my feet again. You know, my therapy is 5 times a week, Monday to Friday. You know, every single
dude
week.
Is that medical aid? Is that straight out of the pocket? How's that even working?
So it's a bit of medical aid, and a lot of the donations that I've received. You know, Cricket South Africa, the Proteas donated towards my rehab a large sum of 50,000. Lungi Ngidi, as I mentioned, he personally donated his match fees. The Titans have donated. The Dolphins have donated. So a lot of different organizations have really rallied behind me and my recovery. And, you know, I'm just humbled by the support that I've received, honestly. And for me, I'm just trying to go hard every single day, because I know how much it's costing and how taxing it is for me to even get this therapy and help me recover.
You have come out of it with your life, which is blessing number 1. But there's a litany, there's a long list of people that I'm sure you would want to thank for you being able to have this conversation with me today. And the folks back in Aberdeen, they rate up amongst those names. But talk to us about those people who were by your side, who got you to where we are today.
Yeah, so even with everything that I've gone through over the past 12 months, and actually yesterday was 1 year exactly the day of when I got sick. You know, I never could have imagined the amount of support that I've received through this journey. I honestly could not have imagined even my family going to the extents that they have gone to be with me. You know, what would happen is my aunt would fly over, she'd stay for 2 weeks, she'd come back. My mom would fly over, she'd stay for 2 weeks, she'd come back. My grandparents, you know, everyone was just doing shift work. Just to make sure that they were with me there. My girlfriend was flying back and forth. It was absolutely a new level of love and support, and it really made me appreciate the people around me even so much more. My teammates, you know, in Scotland, coming to sit bedside with me when I can't even communicate. You know, the club, Cricket South Africa, you know, Saka, helping with paying rent overseas so that my family can have a place to stay when they come visit me. You know, sending funds for my rehab process, my rehabilitation, you know. People, acquaintances, people like you, the media that have really got behind me and have got behind my story and have created this platform for me to really want to prove everyone right. You know, and that I wanna overcome this thing, and that I can overcome this thing, and that it will not derail me, and this will not be where my story ends, you know, as a sportsman. And if anything, you know, there might be something else that I could do within sports, going through this journey and possibly impacting people in a positive way. So it really has given me, I can't even put it into words.
Now, there is a part 2 to this conversation, because with everything happening in cricket in South Africa at the moment, we simply had to chat about the game. For now, though, all we want to say is, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Guido. I'm honestly feeling touched right now, because it's taken me back to when I was in hospital, and like I just mentioned, I was watching you know, covering the England series, and here we are talking, and I'm just thankful that you have given me this opportunity on this platform to be able to share my story, share my thoughts, and you know, together we could possibly impact people in a positive way as a result of the chat that we've just had. So thank you for having me, and I'm honored, and I'm really touched and humbled to be speaking to you today.
That's why we do what we do, my brother. Put that first right there. It's a beautiful thing. Solo, have a wonderful day, my brother, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers. We'll be in touch.
In our next installment, we'll get stuck into the game that Solo is fighting to play once more.
I feel like I have a very good chance of making it back into the game. I mean, if you take it back and you look at my South Africa under-19 World Cup cricket team, I was the only black player in that team. But all we need as players is just that stamp of approval, and not to feel like if I don't perform here, I might not play the next game, or you know, are they going to try and get other players of color, or this and that, or you calculate the team ratios. Where do I fit? You don't want to be thinking that stuff.